Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. Join award-winning host Dale Davidson as he interviews the most remarkable people you'll find in the entertainment capital of the world. You'll meet entertainers, sports figures, newsmakers, community and business leaders, and people just like you with stories that'll touch your heart. Now, here's Dale Davidson.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. Each and every episode, we do our very best to bring you fascinating guests, often from Las Vegas. Well, we were right on both scores this time. He's a fascinating guest, and he's from Las Vegas, or lives here. That's originally from Florida. Wiz Rouzard, who's the Community Engagement Director for Americans for Prosperity.
Yes, thank you, Dale, for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're here at Freedom Fest, which is an appropriate place for you to be.
Yes.
At the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas. Yes. An annual convention, I guess, huh?
Correct.
Tell me, first of all, why did you come to Freedom Fest?
Well, as Community Engagement Director with American for Prosperity, we're one of the, if not the largest, grassroots organization advocating freedom. And so where we find organizations, businesses, and individuals all under one roof, there's nothing better than Freedom Fest.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your personal life. I said you grew up in Florida, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And what brought you to Las Vegas, Nevada?
So both my parents are originally from Haiti. They both immigrated here to the U.S. for better opportunities. Those who don't know where Haiti is located, it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
So although you have the people who are strong-spirited, hard workers, when it comes to economic opportunities, very lacking. So they took the risk, came here to the U.S., they met, they married, they had 5 kids, raised 6. I was one of those 6 kids, very, very blessed to have been raised by parents who always advocated that they came to the country to take advantage of the opportunities to create a better life for their children so that their children can have better opportunities to make a life for themselves.
Yeah.
And I am a prime example of that because in my town of Immokalee, Florida, it is the 10th poorest town and city in Florida.
Really?
It predominantly is immigrants who come from different countries, work the farm fields to provide for their family.
Right.
Graduate top 10 of my class. I got a full ride scholarship to UNLV to play football. And in 2005, I came to Las Vegas with 2 suitcases before City Center was built, before a lot of things were demolished. Graduated, and I got to say, as I said earlier, Dale, Las Vegas is truly one of the fewest cities that have an entrepreneur spirit like no other. The great state of Nevada is very, very business friendly. And given that I've always had an entrepreneurship appetite, I said, you know what, this is where I'm going to make a life for myself. So I joined American for Prosperity 2 years ago when I found out that they were advocating the very same principles and ideals that I've always stood on, which is freedom, liberty, and economic prosperity. So I'm excited to be here at Freedom Fest.
That's great.
We're excited to be here at Freedom Fest to advocate that, and more important, to change the hearts and mind of those who are attending.
Young people, it's a challenge to talk to young people about many issues, but right now they seem to be trending often toward socialism or toward real liberal government-controlled economy. What do you say to a younger person, somebody in college, younger than you are now, who says, I don't believe in that. I think the government should have more control and take care of us and that sort of thing. What do you say to them?
One thing is we definitely do a really good job and being involved in the realities of the situation in the world, which is acknowledging what we're facing today. There are a lot of people, particularly young, as you said, individuals who are graduating college, who have been given expectations, have written out dreams and goals. And so when the moment comes to where they're not claiming those opportunities at the speed or the timeline that they ideally would like to, they become very vulnerable to things such as socialism, government to do for you, and things of that nature.
Free this and free that.
Free this and free that. And so it's always very refreshing when you're able to break away from the party labels, when you're able to break away from the income levels and you really focus in on more of the principles a lot of young people actually realize they don't want to pass the bill on to the next generation.
Yeah.
Which is what free does.
That's wise, because it's going to be their kids.
Correct.
You know.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so nothing in life is free.
Yeah.
And so when we go down more on the principle of understanding how and what government is and how it's supposed to function per our Constitution, but more importantly, the principles of freedom,
Right.
People start to take a step back. And that's what I like to see. And that's why we continuously grow our grassroots base with young people,
Right.
because they realize, yeah, you can give me the hamburger today, but if I owe you, 6 months of work in 2 weeks, I don't think that's going to happen. So
Right,
we do a really good
yeah.
job in showing the exchange for that.
Okay. Do you think there's been an educational disconnect on economics and civics in like the high school level or the junior high level? Are these kids being taught the basic principles of democracy and Constitution and all that sort of thing?
Well, I won't make a blanket statement because every community is different. There's communities that have those type of curriculums that do great. There's communities that have them and don't do great.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing here is what happens outside of the education system. What are the conversations like at home? What are the
Yeah.
conversations like, with friends and colleagues? And for us, what we do is we actually bring those conversations to the table for people to have if they ordinarily don't have them in their household.
Yeah.
And so when you start having those in-depth conversations outside of the books and you start talking about people's own philosophical beliefs, it's pretty surprising how many people truly love and advocate freedom, but just don't know how to truly convey it.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
so when we're able to assist them in helping them convey it, then they become more entrenched in advocating it.
What kind of programs do you advocate then? Do you go into the schools? Are you invited into the schools?
So there's many things that we do. We are invited into the schools. We actually put on events that empower the communities, whether it's bringing an expert in a particular field, or more importantly, if it's going to an actual event and partnering up with organizations that, like Freedom Fest here, right?
Oh, okay.
Where
Okay.
there's people who are yearning for information,
Yeah.
yearning to hear something refreshing. And so we work with all in the community to do right and none to do wrong.
Okay.
And so when it comes to freedom and liberty, I mean, we're all over.
Yeah, and you got a lot of boots on the ground here.
Yeah.
Your green shirts, I was telling you before we rolled tape here, it's like, how do I get to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Where do I go to get
That's
something
right.
to eat?
That's
Where
right.
can I get a Coke? Your people
right.
were all over it,
That's
so that's
That's
good.
it.
So that's part of what it is, flood the area with people, and then you have an opportunity to start a conversation, and you can talk about freedom and liberty and economic prosperity and things like that.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. That's a real good system. How long has the organization been in existence, and what kind of results have you seen in the past few years?
Since the mid-early 2000s
Okay.
up until now, we have seen significant change. One of the things that I really admire about our organization is we have a challenge culture. So we're always talking about being creative
Okay.
and looking for new ways to maximize what it is that we're trying to accomplish in the community
Okay.
towards our goals. So every year, I mean, if you walk in our office every week, the office is different.
Is that right?
There's a new event.
Yeah,
There's new things happening. So we're continuously looking to evolve to continuously accomplish our goals.
Yeah. How much political involvement do you have? Do you identify with a party? Do you stay out of partisan politics? How does that work?
Yeah, you hit it. The latter. We stay
Yeah.
out of party politics. We're a nonpartisan organization that advocates those issues that are very important to us.
Okay.
And so that's where we always say issues unite us, party divides us in that case.
Okay, I like that.
And so what
Yeah.
we do is really look at individuals exactly for that. They're individuals. So when you asked earlier, your group, what do it consist of? I mean, we have people who are Democrat, we have people who are progressive, Republicans, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
People who are libertarians.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah. So the interesting thing is when you get people into a room, and for example, our organization, I always say is, leave that at the door,
Yeah,
and people
yeah.
start talking about those issues.
Right.
There's a lot of issues that people align on.
So there's commonality,
There's
even
commonality.
though they might be the left and the right talking to each other.
Correct.
They got the whole idea about freedom down.
Correct.
Yeah,
We talk
okay.
about freedom, and that allows us to go into the principles,
Yeah, yeah.
which is the very true mechanism of a free and open society.
Okay.
Which is why we drive and continuously talk about that with our activists and those that we engage in the public.
Okay. Let's talk about community organizing, because that's always been fascinating occupation to have. Tell me what bylaws or what rules or what principles do you follow to get people to follow you?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about, right? Persuasive ability and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The community is exactly that. It's a body of people that agree on a particular thing, and that which they agree, they discuss it and they strategize and they implement respectful protocols and boundaries to help them accomplish that goal in a timely manner.
Right.
So going back to what I said, Frederick Douglass said it best, we're willing to unite with all to do right, none to do wrong.
Yeah.
And that does require you to understand no one's perfect in terms of no one's going to be 100% identical to you.
Right.
And
that'd be everybody.
That would be everybody, right? And we just want to make sure that when we do talk to people, we look for those common issues that we can work together to make effective change in the world.
Yeah, that's really impressive. So from a concrete standpoint, then do you, during the year, like plan a calendar? These are the events that we think we want to get involved in. These are the ones that maybe we want to initiate. These are ones we want to partner with. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so given that we're dealing with the community, we do have different dynamics we deal with. Of course, you want to plan out, and we do a lot of events that we plan out. But of course, issues arise, new partnerships come up, opportunities come up that you don't want to miss. And so you have to be also fluid and transient to capitalize on those opportunities. So yes, to answer your question, yes, in every direction. It's a matter of us being able to maximize our capabilities in the community when the opportunity presents itself.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you want to partner with any particular kind of group, or does it matter? Are you just looking for community leaders and then it doesn't matter kind of where they're at?
Correct.
Okay.
And I've always said, lead by example. Playing sports and football, I was the spirit captain on the team.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm more of a person that it's not just being vocal; it's about having the actions, aligned with the words.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people come in initially identifying as one thing, but then when they get to learn who you are and what you're about, and they see the consistency, sometimes that influence tends to then. Allow them to say, that's something I can implement in my life. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
And they take that and, start to change
That's
it within
interesting.
themselves. So the approach here is the more we have dialogues with different groups, the more we share our ideals and principles. You never know what ears might be open, and with those ears open, what heart might change.
Yeah.
If that heart might change, you never know what life in person could change the world.
That's the truth. You must get involved with lobbying on issues, right?
We unfortunately have to register as a lobbyist. I found out that even if you're going in there to talk about freedom, you have to register as a lobbyist. So yes, that is
What's
correct.
that like? I've never been a lobbyist, so I don't know what it's like, but it looks like it's kind of a tough racket.
Yeah. Before I was with American for Prosperity, I've actually been engaged in grassroots work.
Oh, have you?
Just on my own accord since 2011.
Okay.
And so it was interesting to see that even in my spare time, I really fought for Uber. I fought for other things that I felt individual rights were very strong on.
Oh, good for
and,
you.
It's interesting to see how you can go in there and meet with someone and say the same thing, but now that you work for a nonprofit, you still have to go in and actually say that you work for a nonprofit, and because you're speaking on an issue, you have to register. So, and when you have that type of title, some people treat you one way, others treat you another.
Really?
Yeah, because
It can be good or bad?
It could be good or bad.
Okay, yeah.
For me, I just look at it as I'm just an individual here to talk to you, and hopefully this information can share, that I share can change your heart and life.
And then persuasiveness is an important part of that, but then there's politics, right? I mean, you know, they have their base, they have their people that believe certain things. Sometimes you can, talk till the cows come home, and you can't bring them around.
Right.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough. So we always look to inform people with as much information necessary to allow them to make a well-rounded decision. That's
always good. Wiz, we have a brief break to engage in some capitalism here, sell some products. We're Wiz Rouzard, who's a well-spoken community organizer with Americans for Prosperity, and we'll be back with Wiz in just a couple of minutes. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
The Lord has made it possible for our show, Las Vegas Tonight, to thrive. We've produced well over 300 episodes telling the remarkable stories of Christians who have set out to change the world for the better. It's my honor to lead this ministry. As the founder of Dale Davidson Ministries, I'm commanded to be a good steward of all the donations our partners have so generously provided to us. As you can imagine, it takes a great deal of money to keep this program on the air in the United States and around the world. Please prayerfully consider making a one-time donation or becoming a monthly partner of Dale Davidson Ministries. Just go to vegassaints.org and select Make a Donation, or send your check or money order made out to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For more information, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you. Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. We have a terrific guest with us. Wiz Rouzard is the Community Engagement Director for Americans for Prosperity, and he's here at the Freedom Fest, which is an annual conference/convention, I guess they're the same thing, at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we welcome you again. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Dale.
And tell us a little bit. I'm really encouraged to see a young guy like yourself and who's working with young people as well as older folks that's engaged in sort of the traditional values of the American way of life, the American dream. Do you have fear that it's going away?
Oh yeah,
Don't you?
It's one of those things that are forever going to need to be fought for.
Yeah.
But I'm very optimistic, and I truly believe these principles are entrenched in our society. And so long as we continuously have discussions, then I think freedom will prevail.
You talked in the first segment a little bit about your parents and how they came from Haiti,
Yeah.
and you saw firsthand how they believed in the American dream, right? And they
Correct.
found a way to make it work for them. Are you concerned that it's something that we're gonna lose forever if we don't? That's why you have the passion, obviously.
Right.
But you've really got to get the job done, or that it seems to run downhill, doesn't it?
Yeah. You hit on the nail. There's always a concern,
Yeah.
and that, of course, drives passion.
Yeah, sure.
And passion puts me in a position to go out there and really be in the community and be engaged.
Right. Where do you think we're headed as Americans are concerned in our economics and our freedom? What do you think needs to happen to ensure that America will remain the America that it's been for the last 200 years?
Yeah. Well, definitely, if you look at America and its growth, its entrepreneurship, less government regulation that really allow America to thrive
Right.
In the early times. And it's still thriving, but still with the regulations, you're starting to see it kind of scale back, which is why we advocate for unrigging the economy.
Yeah, tell me about that. What specifically are you saying when you say unregging the
We're talking
economy?
about getting rid of corporate welfare.
Right.
We're
That's
talking
interesting.
about the Export-Import Bank being utilized for special protection, special industries. We're talking about allowing free market principles to truly determine what value there is in products and services.
Okay.
And more importantly, what companies should be there and what companies shouldn't.
Yeah.
And putting the choice back in the hands of the American people.
The consumer
The
decide.
consumer decides where
Yeah.
that value is.
Yeah, okay. What about, do you take a stance on the Federal Reserve at all?
As an organization, no.
Okay.
But we're pretty strong on advocating strong monetary policy.
Okay.
But we have not touched the Federal Reserve. That's not one of our priority
Okay.
initiatives.
Okay. As far as governmental control is concerned, let's talk about specifics, if you don't mind. The Commerce Department, right? That seems to shift from, my observation has been, they're supposed to be pro-business, okay? And depending on which party is in power or which administration is running things at any given moment, the policies change. So as a business person, I want to start a business, right? And I want it to succeed, and I want to hire people, and I want to have success. But how do I know that the next administration is not going to come along and change all the rules that I based everything on?
Yeah.
So, it's a big question, and I don't want you to, have to take a slap at the Commerce Department, but you know what I'm saying. Right?
We definitely understand, just at the end of the day, stability is very important.
Sure.
And when every 4 years you have to look over your shoulder,
Yeah,
that
that's
can
what
be
I'm
very
saying.
concerning, and it's very taxing on individuals, particularly small businesses that just do not have the capabilities to continuously, pump the legal money into the system to try to be in compliance and so on and so forth. So
Right, yeah.
it is something of concern. And when we talk about unrigging the economy, that's kind of what we're talking about, is not continuously writing laws every 4 years or so. That's making things a lot more complicated and not allowing people to be more competitive.
Okay. Do you take a stance on tariffs? Your attitude toward, what's going on now is costing, on the one hand, you can see why they're doing what they're doing. But on the other hand, businesses are suffering.
Yeah.
And, former, $6-10 million a month is now $1-2 million a month.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
It is very difficult, and as an organization, we oppose tariffs.
Right.
We're big on free trade.
Right.
And at the end of the day, any tariffs that's imposed on any products, it's really the American people who are hurt.
Yeah.
And those individuals are people who are already on fixed income. You're talking about people who are already struggling. So it's added into the price point of the product, and it's the American people buying the product. So it's one of those things that we advocate on principle, that free trade is how you determine the value thereof, and allowing competition, and competition will drive the best quality of life and the choices that those individuals will have.
That's well said. Do you do voters guides by any chance?
Voter guides?
Voter guides, like the Christian organizations sometimes will say, here are our issues, and here's where this candidate stands on those issues, but other candidates
correct.
are here.
Okay, so voter guides in terms of scorecard is what we call it.
Yeah, scorecard, okay.
We do have scorecards. We just ended the 2019 legislation session here in the state of Nevada, up in Carson City, so we're currently working on a voter scorecard that kind of what you pointed out will list our issues and priorities and where certain legislators voted and where they align, or if they don't align, and so on and so forth. So you'll see the A's and then you'll see the F's.
Okay.
And the hope here is to, more importantly, inform our activists in our base about those issues that we care about and where the individuals that currently represent them stand, so that they have a better, well-rounded idea of where that person's outlook is on those particular issues if they want to engage.
So you may not endorse a candidate. You don't endorse candidates.
No, we don't endorse candidates.
But you make it pretty clear, you know, this individual believes this or voted this way.
Correct.
Right?
Belief and vote's two distinct things. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people come in saying this person believes, and we stray away from that.
Because belief is talk.
Correct. We're big on free speech, where we advocate openness and toleration, but what we do keep individuals, particularly legislators, accountable to is the actual vote. Now that action as a representative is something that we do take strongly into consideration. That shows where you are.
How do you feel about the last session here in Nevada? It was kind of tough, wasn't it?
It was tough. It was tough, but the best part there was people, regardless of what side of the aisle you stood on, when it came down to the issues, really, really worked well with each other.
Did they?
And we were really happy to see both parties come together on certain issues like criminal justice reform to make effective change in the state.
Yeah. What's your attitude on criminal justice reform? You think it's absolutely necessary?
It is absolutely necessary when you look at the state of Nevada and what we're spending. And going back to individual rights, due process, which you talked about, the values of what makes us Americans.
We got a lot of people in prison.
You talk about freedom and liberty, and you look at a system that really deprives people, not because they're guilty, but because they financially don't have the ability to prove their innocence. These were concerns of ours. And so our organization took a stance and said, you know, we have to definitely, you know, join this fight. And when we join it, we're going to drive our principles, because if we can drive our principles on these issues and make effective change, people will understand what does it mean to be American. And that is respect and understand and uphold individual rights to where everyone is treated equally under the law, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your income, regardless of your religion. The law applies to all.
Now, grassroots, you know, I love seeing grassroots organizations and watch them work. I think, this is just my opinion, I think we're going to get more done nationally at the state house level than we ever are in the U.S. Senate and U.S. House. You know, I don't know what's going on back there in D.C., but it's impossible. And I mean, I know you guys have an office right there and you lobby them, but what the heck is going to happen there, you know?
I've always said if you can predict D.C., then you should go down there and predict the weather, the lottery, and everything else, because you said it best. I mean, what makes our Constitution amazing is the fact that there's a lot of voices and there's a separation of power. And there's checks and balances that just requires the process to be a little bit more strenuous, so that if there's effective change to be made, it can be made in the right way, in the most efficient way. But yeah, we're continuously in D.C., and I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But I know I wake up every day just fighting the right fight, and that's advocating those principles.
You know, the dynamics there are complex. You know, I understand that, but there is a I want to die on this hill mentality. You know, that really makes it difficult. And if you're it seems to me it's a little easier on the state level and the local level, only because you know people better, you know them as individuals, and as a community organizer, that's your strength,
Right.
Because you can talk to people,
Right,
and
right.
you get to these federal levels and this other kind of stuff,
Right.
It's just almost impossible, isn't
Right,
it? Yeah.
right. Even when you look at, our Constitution and you look at elections, I mean, that's what's amazing about it.
Yeah.
Is the fact that we are a United States of America and powers are reserved to the state, which was not given to the federal government.
Right, yeah.
There's checks and balances there.
Sure.
And then more importantly, you have, as a community, you have your municipalities and people who closely are living in your communities that can represent you.
Right.
It just makes it so much more effective for people's voices to be heard. And I
Yeah.
think that's the most important
Yeah.
component there.
Otherwise, to be U.S. Senator from California,
Yeah.
who do you you represent?
Yeah.
Millions and millions of
Right.
people, and you don't know but 1% of them.
Correct.
And that makes it really difficult. So what you're doing is very powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. What impresses me the most about you is obviously the study you've done on the American system. Not only of capitalism, but of the politics of it all. Did you get that at UNLV? Did the Runnin' Rebels teach you this, or did you get it all on your own?
I mean, you learn quite an amount in college.
Yeah. What was your major?
Journalism and media studies with the minor
okay.
in marketing. So
Yeah.
I would have to definitely say my family, my mother and father, working very hard, kind of sharing with us the difference between outcome and opportunity, that
Right.
America guarantees opportunity and not outcome. And that just shows every day that you wake up and you pursue your dream and your goals, it's not guaranteed. And there are risks that are, part of that process. But if you keep working hard and you believe in yourself, then the chances are that you'll be successful. And then that drove me into the principles. And then I love Frederick Douglass.
I heard you quote him.
I came
He's
across,
a great man.
He was a phenomenal person. I mean, to teach himself how to read and write. For him at the time that the country was in a place where African Americans were not even considered a part of the system, yet an individual.
Yeah.
For him to be in those conditions around him, and yet the virtues of freedom and liberty still entrenched in his heart, to where he literally kept it above his head as a north compass to keep reminding him during his own faults what he was continuously pursuing. I mean, generations like myself, to read his memoirs and autobiography, literally understand when we look back in time what great sacrifices he was making to preserve a principle that's true to all of us. And that's what makes us American, is the fact that we love and advocate freedom and liberty, respect individual rights, and more importantly, understand that openness and toleration and differences is what makes us better and greater.
Well, you can't say any better than that. That was well done. Why don't you take a minute and, if you want to address the camera, you can. Tell folks how to get in touch with you. Website, telephone number, whatever, because obviously we need to get as many people involved in your group as possible.
Yes, for those of you located in the state of Nevada, we have 2 offices, one in Reno, Nevada, and one here in Las Vegas. I'm the Community Engagement Director for the Las Vegas, Nevada office. Our office is located at 2880 Meade Avenue, Suite 360, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89102. Our website is AmericansForProsperity.org. And for those of you who want to email me or want more information, my email is WROUZARD@AFPHQ.org. And I'm more than happy to share my thoughts or be in contact with anyone who's interested in becoming more involved. I tell people this all the time: your story matters, your life experience matters. It is for you to share with the world so the world can understand what it is that you experience. And when people understand what you experience, then they understand what it is that we are fighting for, which is everyone individual rights, advocating the ideals of freedom, liberty, and economic prosperity.
Thank you. You're
Thank
a very
you, Dale.
bright young man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming by and appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wiz Rouzard, ladies and gentlemen, Las Vegas Community Engagement Director,
got it.
Americans for Prosperity.
You got it.
I got it all. How about that? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Dale. You're phenomenal.
Okay, thank you. God bless you all, and we'll be back with more right after this.
A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you. Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
The Lord has made it possible for our show, Las Vegas Tonight, to thrive. We've produced well over 300 episodes telling the remarkable stories of Christians who have set out to change the world for the better. It's my honor to lead this ministry. As the founder of Dale Davidson Ministries, I'm commanded to be a good steward of all the donations our partners have so generously provided to us. As you can imagine, it takes a great deal of money to keep this program on the air in the United States and around the world. Please prayerfully consider making a one-time donation or becoming a monthly partner of Dale Davidson Ministries. Just go to vegassaints.org and select Make a Donation, or send your check or money order made out to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For more information, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you. Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. Each and every week, we try to bring you fascinating guests. Well, we've outdone ourselves this time. His name is Dr. Hyrum Lewis. He is a professor of intellectual history at BYU in Idaho. And we're going to talk about Christianity. We're going to talk about how the West developed under Christianity, I hope. I got a couple of questions in that area. And Hyrum was kind enough to join us here at Freedom Fest in the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's going to be a speaker. And thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it, Hyrum.
Thank you, Dale. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? I think you said Oregon, huh?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, tell us what that was like.
Yeah, I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, which is, of course, a college town. And
It is.
And then
The Ducks, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Duck fans are obnoxious, though, so I'm not much of a fan myself.
The uniforms are kind of obnoxious, I got to tell you, you know?
So that's right.
Yeah.
But when I turned 18, I went on a mission, graduated from BYU in Provo. Did graduate work at the University of Southern California. That's where I did my doctorate, and then I have had visiting positions at Skidmore College in Albany, New York, and then Stanford University in Palo Alto.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and now I'm at BYU, Idaho, and just love it there.
Oh, yeah. And you're going to stay there, you think?
Oh, I think so.
Oh, it's a great place to raise a family. Tell me about your family.
I got a wife named Sandy, and 5 kids.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
You look like you're not that tired. You should be.
My wife carries more than her fair share of the burden.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, she's
tell us about intellectual history. What is it?
So a lot of people divide the realm of history and divide all of human activity into 3 domains. So you might talk about cultural, economic, and political.
Okay.
So intellectual, so political, obviously, we're talking about armies, we're talking about tanks, we're talking about police officers,
right.
and politicians. When we talk about economics, we're talking about economic entities, we're talking about Walmart, manufacturing, the
right.
tech sector.
Okay.
When we talk about culture, we're talking about ideas. We're talking about the way people think, what people value. And religion obviously falls in the realm of culture.
Sure.
So intellectual history then is a subset of cultural history. It's kind of the articulated ideas. It's the high-level ideas advanced by intellectuals.
Okay.
So intellectual history, subset of cultural history. I focused on 20th century thinking.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let's talk about the early 20th century.
Sure.
That was the beginnings, really, of America becoming a superpower, which came about in the second half of the 20th century. What role did religion play during the 20th century in the United States?
What a lot of historians say is for a long time there was this idea, they called it the secularization thesis, that as societies advance technologically, that religion naturally goes down and down. The idea being that God is like Santa Claus. You grow up, you stop believing in Santa Claus. You grow up, you stop believing in God. And so people believed that clearly as America became a superpower, as it became industrial, as it became post-industrial, naturally you're going to see religion decline as our technological and scientific understanding advances. It's simply not true.
Right.
That has been shown to be false overwhelmingly. There's not a single historian of religion that I know of that would agree with that thesis. So what you see instead is you see a general upward trend in religiosity. We're actually more religious today, believe it or not, than we were in the 1700s.
That's encouraging. I think. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We've seen a downtick, as you probably know, in the last generation.
Yeah.
But you see ups and downs. There's a general upward trend and little dips here and there within it. So the ups, the big ups, they call Great Awakenings, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Sure.
So in the 1740s, you have the first Great Awakening with George Whitefield, Jonathan Edwards,
right.
fellows like that.
Right.
And second Great Awakening in the 1810s and 20s, and then a third Great Awakening, and this is what we're talking about here, in the 20th century.
Right.
And so America's rise to superpower status, its greatest moments of growth economically and technologically, happened when we were having this third Great Awakening, coincided with it. So this idea that religion and science are opposites and somehow in competition is just historically nonsense.
Yeah.
They've actually gone together, and America's greatest rise has happened as religion grew. That's not just true of the 20th century. You think what was happening in the 1740s. So the Enlightenment, right?
All right, yeah.
Founding fathers and more Newtonian science and things like that. And people say, yes, finally science to displace religion. But in fact, the big religious awakening coincided with our great scientific awakening.
Yeah.
And in the 1820s, same thing. A lot of scholars trace America's kind of an upward trajectory economically to the 1810s and 20s. You get the telegraph, you get the first railroads during that era, you get the market revolution.
Sure.
And these things are all happening coincident with the second Great Awakening. So every time you have a Great Awakening, you have a great scientific awakening too. In my opinion, God dispenses his glory and knowledge and wisdom upon us in all realms, religious realms. And
that's wonderful to hear. And so in the third Great Awakening, really at the turn of the 20th century, right? And into the 20th century.
Most people would trace it, usually associate a figure with a Great Awakening.
Right.
So with the Great Awakening in the 1740s, Whitefield was the big celebrity preacher.
Right, yes.
In the 1810s, you had a guy named Charles Grandison Finney, and then in the 1950s, Billy Graham. And so a lot of people say the Great Awakening, we see a huge rise in religion in the 1950s. Billy Graham is kind of the figurehead of that big movement.
Right, that's interesting. Where do you see the Billy Grahams of the world coming from today? Do you believe that there is going to be another single figure, or is media divided enough, and is it difficult enough to bring America together that you can find another preacher like Billy Graham?
Well, that's interesting. I have long ago, as a historian, the more you study history, some people say the further you look back, the better you're able to predict the future. I just don't think that's true. The more you realize how futile it is to predict the future, because especially as an intellectual historian, looking at intellectuals all making predictions, all certain this was going to happen, and they've all been wrong.
Yeah,
like 100%. So knowing what the future is going to do, but I would say, I do see some trends as far as hunger goes, and what I see a desire for more and more is a post-partisan America. Not that we won't have two political parties, I think we always will, and I think we always should. I like the two-party system. But people are so ideological about their party affiliation.
Right now they sure are.
Yes, and so I think if there was going to be a fourth great awakening, which I assume there will be, I think some kind of post-partisan figure would have to emerge. I think Billy Graham did that pretty well.
Yeah.
He was an advisor to, as I understand it, every Republican president of the late 20th century, every Democratic president.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's not that he didn't have
from
political
Truman
views.
on, really. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Eisenhower, he was a fan of. Nixon, he was friends with. Bill Clinton, he was friends with.
Yeah.
Somebody who can walk that post-partisan line.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they won't have political opinions, but they will try to keep those muted and try to see
Yeah.
the good on both sides of the political divide as best they can, and have that
Yeah.
kind of charitable spirit. I think there's a hunger for that in our age of hyper-partisanship and tribal hatred.
Following up on that, would you say, I've never seen the divide with religion and politics as strong in my lifetime as it is right now. And evangelicals, Protestants in general, even a lot of Catholics seem to be identifying with one party, the Republican Party, and the more secular or more liberal theologically, mainline churches seem to be more Democrat. I mean, that's a gross generalization, but
pretty accurate.
do you feel that's going to continue, or because that's really something new, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and so you make a great point that we throw terms around politically like conservative and liberal, and then you have these terms theologically, more conservative, liberal, and we assume that they coincide.
They don't.
Well, it's not necessarily they don't today, but they haven't historically. So if you were in the 19th century, if you were in the year 1890, the most theologically conservative person in politics was a fellow named William Jennings Bryan, who was the Populist Party standard bearer. Hardcore theologically conservative, and yet considered a political radical. So the demographics, we're talking about rural white Americans, hardcore religious evangelicals. You can say they were religiously conservative, but they were the most politically left-wing people
That's
in
interesting,
America.
isn't it? Yeah, that is.
So this is a strange moment in American history.
Populists, really.
That's what they call themselves,
Yeah.
And I guess you could say we've come full circle, right? Because people talk Donald Trump was a populist, and yet he got a lot of evangelical votes too. But these alignments switch quite frequently. And one scholar, I wish I could remember her name, but she recently wrote a book pointing out that the reason tribalism and partisan hatred has gotten so angry is because so many of our alignments and so many of our identities have now coincided. It used to be that you have your political identity, I'm a Democrat, and then you have your religious identity, I'm a Catholic, and then you have your kind of rural versus urban identity, and they would all overlap in different ways, and now they've become more unified.
That's interesting. They've kind of melded together, if you will.
They all coincide. If you're, like you say, if you're religiously conservative, then political conservatism seems to grow naturally out of that, and it wasn't always the case. And so you can, when you have all your identities bound up in one group, it's much easier to feel like the other side is the other side. Whereas before it's, well, we're both Catholics, and so what? And then Republican, and I have my Catholic identity, my Republican identity. Now when my Catholic and Republican identity is so bound together, it's hard to have charity towards people who might disagree. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Do you see that divide changing as this new century continues on? Do you think there will be, do you think there'll be another awakening, first of all, in the 21st century? And if so, do you think there'll be a move toward more togetherness in terms of our religious faith and our political leanings? I'm trying to find hope in this.
The bad news is, the good news is the answer is yes. I think there will be an awakening, and I think it will be a healing awakening. The bad news is I think it would require some major traumatic event to cause it, because all our previous awakenings have been accompanied by trauma. I mean, the Great Awakening, the Third Great Awakening, I'm thinking most recently in the 1950s, you had the country went through in many ways, the two most traumatic events in its history. Right? It went through the Great Depression, and then it went through World War II, and those events were of such magnitude and had such an impact on America that largely brought people around and said, you know, we lost our way. We became too materialistic. We became too focused on things that weren't ultimately important.
Right.
And I think when we have something the magnitude of a world war and the threat of Nazi takeover, it refocuses you towards higher, deeper things. Right now we're in such a narcissistic moment where our concerns are how many likes we get on Facebook and these little things and binge watching Netflix. These are our concerns, and ultimate matters have faded from view because we're so ultimately distracted. A big event like a war, I'm not asking for this, I'm a quasi-pacifist, but a big event like a war or a major economic downturn, I think could wake us out of our dogmatic slumbers.
That's very, very interesting. I thought I saw it after 9/11. You know, when political leaders and the religious leaders and everyday people joined together to sing "God Bless America" on the steps of the Capitol and so on. I said, well, now there will be a change. But it sure seemed to fade from view pretty quickly, didn't it?
Correct. And you wonder if that's because the impact of 9/11, so I don't know how you felt 9/11, but I thought, oh, this is a new era we're entering. Some people talk about the age of terror. That became the word people used. But in hindsight, that just didn't happen. We didn't enter a new age of terror.
No.
We fought a war in Afghanistan, a war in Iraq, which was more controversial, and some people want to blame that event, which may have contributed with kind of tearing the country apart. But I think it's more that what we thought was, okay, now we have a new era of trauma like World War II, like the Great Depression, that's going to last for years and years, bring the country together, we're all going to be in this fighting. And after 9/11 happened and then there wasn't really a follow-up attacks, Islamic terror seems to be on the back burner. So I think it didn't turn out to be the major world-changing event that we thought it would be.
Wow. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your book. It's called "This Is a God."
There is a God.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read. There is a God. How to Respond to Atheism in the Last Days by Hyrum Lewis. First of all, how can we get the book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, so just
there you go.
There.
And I'm going to need to let you go because you're heading over to C-SPAN to the book show, and you'll want to talk about it. But briefly, if you could kind of summarize, you told me before we began taping that you sort of became an apologist by accident.
That's right.
And we're glad you did, because we need good intellectual apologists today. Tell me how you came about writing the book and how you find yourself now in defending the Christian faith.
Yeah, so it happened mostly by accident. I was and am working on a project which is completely historical, nothing really to do with religious matters. But when I was in graduate school studying intellectual history, you run across folks like John Dewey, Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, Friedrich Nietzsche. These are the dominant figures of early 20th century thinking. And so you're reading a lot in this stuff and it doesn't add up. You think what they're saying, the atheist arguments they make just struck me so weak. And so Ernest Hemingway once said that writing is kind of an exorcism. You can't let ideas go until you write them down. And I said, I'm not going to be able to concentrate. Just get this out. So every time I would have just an idea buzzing that didn't sit right with me, I'd go and exercise it by writing it on a card or in a computer file. And pretty soon I realized, I've got hundreds of pages of stuff here. So I started organizing it and putting it together. I'm like, all right, I'll move on to my other project. Let me get this out of the way. It's kind of a footnote. And so I just put it all together, and I didn't think about publishing it. I just sent it to my brother. And he said, this is good stuff. You ought to get it published. And so I had a friend who was with Cedar Fort, and so they put the book out for me, and I'm glad they did.
Have you been called upon to debate atheists and to call them out on their weak thinking? Have you?
I'll be debating Michael Shermer. You know him?
Oh, yeah. Today. Oh, okay.
Editor of Skeptic
That's what
magazine.
you're doing, huh?
Yeah.
How do you feel about debate? Do you enjoy it? The intellectual rigor of it?
Well, I've never done it. I've never done a formal debate. I should say, one of the good things about graduate school and being in an academic department is, in some sense, it's all debate all the time. I have terrific colleagues up at BYUI, and we just, in the halls, it's constant give and take, and we have our disagreements.
Oh, yeah?
But it's always done in the nature of good. We love each other ultimately, and so it's all done in that spirit. So informal debate plenty, but I've never done a formal debate. But you know, debate has its positives, and that is that that's
Sure.
how truth emerges, is through critical dialogue. And,
Sure.
and so Karl Popper defined that as the essence of rationality. So in that sense, debate is crucial for getting at truth.
Sure.
When people say debate, though, oftentimes you immediately think of what we see on Fox News or on MSNBC of the shouting matches. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
certainly hope it doesn't devolve into that, because
Right.
I disagree with Dr. Shermer, but I respect his work, and I
Yeah.
think he has important things to say, even if I disagree with them.
Yeah.
So we'll hope.
Well, that's an enlightened way to look at it. But yeah, you're right. A lot of cable yelling accomplishes nothing. You know.
I agree.
You know, the clang of the cymbal signifying nothing, or something like that. Right.
You got it. You got it.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us today, Dr. Hyrum Lewis, and he's from BYU in Idaho, which he loves. He loves Idaho.
I do.
Yeah. Don't let him. Don't let Harvard take you away. We need you in the West.
Big worry.
Okay. Good luck on your debate.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Nice
you,
to meet
Hyrum.
Dale.
And thank you for watching Las Vegas Tonight. The Lord has made it possible for our show, Las Vegas Tonight, to thrive. We've produced well over 300 episodes telling the remarkable stories of Christians who have set out to change the world for the better. It's my honor to lead this ministry. As the founder of Dale Davidson Ministries, I'm commanded to be a good steward of all the donations our partners have so generously provided to us. As you can imagine, it takes a great deal of money to keep this program on the air in the United States and around the world. Please prayerfully consider making a one-time donation or becoming a monthly partner of Dale Davidson Ministries. Just go to vegassaints.org and select Make a Donation, or send your check or money order made out to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada 89117. For more information, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you.
A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world. A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with Dale Davidson. Send your tax-deductible gifts to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Or call 702-480-3989. Thanks for watching.